Interest and penalty is just something you should not want to deal with. It hurts the pocket more than we want to allow it to, right? So in this video here, I'm covering tax due dates because it's one of those things where if you forget it, you pay for it. Pretty much, yeah. If you forget a tax due date, you practically pay for it in interest and penalty, and you don't want that to happen. Hey, my name is Rose Brown, also known as the Accountant Therapist, and I am the CEO of Brown's Advisory and Accounting Firm. And as I cover these dates, I want you to screenshot, put a pin somewhere, put it on your calendar. It is important that you do not forget these things. You see, the tax system here in America, it requires us as taxpayers, you and I, to pay attention to these dates. And if we don't, unfortunately, we have to pay out of our pockets because we didn't pay close attention to when these items were due, the tax filing dates, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the dates according to the month. I'm going to start from January, and we're going to work our way down, right? And a few things that I do want you to note as I speak about these tax deadlines, these due dates. I'm primarily talking about calendar year. If you are in a fiscal year, then we'll talk about that a little bit as we get to those dates, right? And then outside of that, if the due date falls on a weekend or a holiday, you can expect for the next due date to be on the next business day, right? So it's just as simple as that. So if it's a weekend that the tax date falls on, you can expect the next Monday or the following Monday, that is. If it's a business day, it's not a holiday, that's when it would be due, okay? So let's kick things off with January. So January, we're going to start with January 15th. January 15th, that due date is for the fourth quarter of the prior year estimated tax payments, okay? Fourth quarter estimated tax payment for the prior year, January 15th. January 31st, we're seeing this is when 1099s are due. So your 1099 NEC, 1099 miscellaneous, practically all your 1099s are due on this date here. And if you're an employer, that means you need to have this filed with the IRS by that date. If you are a recipient of this form, that doesn't mean you're going to get it on that day, right? Outside of those 1099s, your W-2s are due as well, right? So January 31st, we can't forget that. That's imperative. Now we're going to move our way down. We get to February. There's nothing really happening in February. So we're going to jump on over to March. So when we look at March, we're first seeing March 15th. Now with March 15th, that is the tax deadline for businesses, right? And when I say businesses, I'm referring to multi-member LLCs, tax as a partnership, right? I'm referring to S corporations, and I'm referring to partnerships altogether. Now, if you are operating on a fiscal year, the tax return is due the third month, the 15th date of the third month following the close of your tax year. So you can see it's a little bit of a tongue twister there. But outside of that, if for some reason you're like, you know what, I need some time to file my tax return, you can put in for an extension and get 6 months extra to file that business return. So if your calendar year and that tax return is due March 15th, 6 months from there brings you to September 15th. So it gives you a little bit more time to kind of gather everything, right? Now we move on from March, we hop over to April. This is the famous tax month or tax day. Everybody knows this. So April 15th is the individual tax deadline due date, right? So if you're an individual, you're filing your 1040, this is when your tax return is due. Now, if you are needing more time, again, you can file an extension, and that gives you 6 months, which lands you in October 15th, right? Now, outside of the individual tax filing due date being on April 15th, another thing happens on April 15th, and that's for quarterly estimated tax payment. That's the first quarter estimated tax payment of the current year, okay? Now, once we leave April, we hop over to May, and we see May 15th. May 15th is the deadline for nonprofit organizations and foundations, okay? And that's it for May. We're gonna hop on over to June. When we get to June, it's June 15th, and that is the second quarter estimated tax payment. That's when that is due. And then nothing is happening in July, nothing in August. We get to September, and we see two things happening on September 15th. So September 15th, that's the third quarter estimated tax payment, right? And then outside of that, if you had filed an extension on for March 15th, if you're a business, again, remember that is multi-member LLCs, that's partnerships, that's S corporations. If you had filed an extension, September 15th now becomes your new due date, okay? Once we leave leave September, we hop on over to October, and one thing really is happening in October, and that is the individual tax extension due date. So if you have filed an extension as an individual who files a Form 1040, because you needed some time, your new due date would have been October 15th. So you don't want to forget that. So that pretty much covers it for the entire year, from January all the way down. If you have any questions, let me know. These are not dates to be played with. Again, they cost not to remember. So put that on your calendar, screenshot, write down a memo somewhere, okay? Again, my name is Rose Brown, also known as the Accountant Therapist. And don't forget to like, share, and comment.